blessed unity with the L-O-V-E. Love is the solution, so set your love free with the L-O-V-E. Further evolution and blessed unity.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Self-Love Show.
Good morning.
We are in transitional space today, and you get to come along with us. We had a beautiful human who lives on the other side of the world, and we're having weather and technical difficulties, and Manish isn't able to join us today, but we will have her back on soon because she's just a really inspiring, wonderful human. And she has so much positive impact in the world, so I'm really excited. But today, Dawn and I are going to talk about redefining success. And it is a show that we ran at the beginning, like it is a tool that we ran at the very beginning of the pandemic. And what I'm finding is that even now, the tool has been helping me as my life ups and downs and rolls and rounds and shifts and, there's setbacks in business and there's setbacks in the things that I want to get done and accomplish. And then there's like way forward movement in other areas of my life. And there's just like, So today I think that like sitting with redefining success in your life as not being one of these materialistic pinpoints. Like we get to choose how we humanize and how we humanize each other, how we compassionately approach situations. And this is one of those places. So that's my thought on it. Did you want to say anything before we launch into this whole conversation?
Oh, I'm just grateful for the opportunity to pivot. This is a moment in time when a guest can't show because of technical difficulty that we just were like, all right, we're going to pivot here, and excuse us for being a little late due to that. But, this is one of those moments, right? We're human, having a human experience, and here we are pivoting. So proud of us for showing up and figuring out a new angle.
Kind of last minute too.
Yeah, very last minute.
So when we stop beating ourselves up about where we are, we create space for fulfillment. We create space for forward movement. We create space and alignment with divine flow. And so it's through deeper self-love, self-acceptance, and self-care we get into alignment. Right? That's part of this process. And we have the opportunity to restructure not only in ourselves, but in our communities and in the world, how we define progress and success. And I'm glad that I picked this one, actually, Dawn. This is kind of, I just randomly picked something, because this is actually a pretty
poignant
show for me specifically, which is actually something we talked about wanting me to talk about today, if we randomly. I recently took that anti-oppression course. I used to call it the anti-racism course, but what I'm really understanding now is that it's an anti-oppression course. And what it's shown me is a deeper way and an understanding of how we got to this point, like how we got to how we participate in capitalism and how we participate in sexism and how we participate in oppressive beliefs and racism, classism, and all these things, like how we got here. And it's really interesting that some of the measures of success are particularly harmful, like very harmful. So finances, for one, that, what is it that the credit score system only it didn't have that only just begin in the 80s, like late 80s. Like nobody had credit scores before then, and credit scores are specifically sort of oppressive, they're particularly oppressive to people without money who have to take out debt loans. Like that's how you build credit, is through the effective and efficient utilization of debt. you get credit cards and you take money out and then you put money back in. This is how that is supported. But people without money and people who struggle like are living paycheck to paycheck, right? So that system particularly harms anybody who's not in the middle class. So, I mean, just as a side note, so then we're like, I don't know if you all know this about me, but I grew up really poor. Well, I grew up in weird places of of the socioeconomic status class. So my parents, the parents that I lived with were probably maybe like upper middle or upper lower class. They would drop down if one of us got sick, or if we had to buy a new car, if we had to fix a car. That is some whoa. I grew up in a trailer park in Montana. Things that I was 74 miles away from a pair of underwear and socks, and we ate wheat bread and meat and potatoes. Like that was what we could afford. My other parents were probably middle class. So this like moving understanding of money. Now, the lessons that I learned here is that, I could see the judgments between my middle class family and like how unsuccessful my other parents were, the parents of my primary caregivers. And that's kind of what I'm just using these as an example of something that if we're always putting our success on an outward thing, on something externally, which looks like money, which looks like education, which looks like materials, cars, homes. What else you got? Oh, clothing, fashion, jewelry.
Pretty much anything external.
If he loves me or not. Like when we put our worth and our success out into this field, then what we're doing is we're making us not worthy of. Are you hearing where I'm going here? It's that we're saying, oh, unless I have those things, then I'm not worthy of love or worthy of being successful. Like those don't exist until I get there. These incremental steps that society or socially we're supposed to have. But I mean, everybody who's watching, do you feel like that's true?
Well, we're taught this in society to compare ourselves against others. It's a very common thing that occurs is comparison. And I find when I am speaking with my clients, it's so ingrained. I have one client in particular it's very ingrained, and she's really peeling back the layers of every time she can recognize when she starts to compare herself against something that it creates so much suffering. And it's like, wait a minute, let's pull back from that and let's examine like your true value here is inside. And this is exactly where you need to be right now for your learning, your growth. And it always brings it back to her. And I'm like, no, you cannot compare yourself against those people, that person. You're not less than because you're in a different, state of living than they are, and it's been a very powerful awakening for her, and really to tap back into the true principles of spiritual principles that take place from really recognizing that everything comes from spirit, everything comes from source, whatever you want to call it, and that it's the relationship with source that creates all the abundance in our life. Everything in our life is sustained and created through that. So when we're really in alignment with that, it allows us to expand in our consciousness, which then expands in our physical world, whatever that may be.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm reading this book, and it's a really funny book. I've kind of poo-pooed it a little bit because it's been, it's written by a privileged white guy. And so it kind of been like, and the name of it's kind of like flippant, but it's called The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. And the first part of the book blew my mind. I mean, I've understood this before, but what I'm gathering from this particular thing, and I'm going to share it with you in a second, is that when you're like set for something and you're like, yes, this is successful, and you're like progress and I'm really progress driven, and I'm really like, my brain has the like, are we fixing it now? Like I'm kind of like an engineer in that sense. I'm like, oh, it's broken, let's fix it. So what he said in the book, and I'm going to paraphrase, sorry, Mark Manson, I'm probably going to butcher it. But what he said is that this idea that we're constantly seeking to evolve, or we're constantly, bettering ourselves, is actually a specific focus on what we don't have, on what we're not accepting in ourselves. And I sat there and I thought about it. I take a long time to read sometimes, and I'll just sit with something. So that line, and I like took a shower over it, and then I drove, 10 hours over it. And I've just been sitting with this book and sitting with just the one line, thinking about the implications of that particular piece. It's like, oh, if I have a wealth coach, I mean, for all you wealth coaches, I'm not pooing on you at all, because you're beneficial, and I've been using your help. I mean, we had Rebecca on a while ago. Anyway, I've been sitting here thinking about like affirmations and thinking about the coaches that we use, or the therapists that we use, and it's like, or utilize their skills. And I was thinking like, oh my gosh, if my brain doesn't actually think that I'm wealthy. So let's say I'm like sitting in front of the mirror and I'm going, I'm wealthy, healthy, happy, and wise. And any part of that doesn't feel authentic and true for me, my brain, thanks brain, and my heart are going to be like, stop lying to yourself. And it's going to totally stop. And you're going to have the cognitive dissonance. And so it's like, it's kind of like a self-gaslight, right? You're like, oh, I'm happy. And you're like, my auntie just died, and my stepbrother's wife just died, which are all true in my life. And I'm like, and I'm struggling to find how to reintegrate into my life after this course. Like, if I'm saying to myself that I'm happy and I'm not, and that's kind of like not honoring. It's not kind of not like, it's not honoring where I'm at. And so when Mark's sharing this piece about, the fact that we're always focusing on these like sort of positives, I'm not saying not to do that, but when we're focusing on things that are out of touch right now, that it actually creates more deficit, that you're literally focusing on the negative. You're focusing on what you don't have. And I was like, oh my
You're reaffirming in your consciousness that you don't have it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's set in a positive, right? Like, oh, I'm wealthy. And I'm like, I'm not wealthy. I'm not that way. I have amazing things. And so what I've been thinking about in this specific aspect is like, oh, my definition of love is the radical acceptance of what is. Can I love where I'm at? Like, literally, can I just be like, all right, I'm here in this particular, I'm in a garage in Montana. Can I just love this in the moment and know that everything is I'm safe. I'm in my body. I'm here with my best friend. I have my friends watching who are here in this conversation. I'm connected to my family. This is actually pretty well. What?
I'm held.
This is a certain type of success. This is a certain type of progress, the progress of being with the discomfort or being with what is. So can I start there? Can I just be like, all right, realistically, this is what I have. This is what's in my bank account. This is what my car looks like. This is what my friendships look like, even the ones that are rocky. can I, even my family relationships, this is all what is right now. And can I just look through the lens of love? And can I just be that? Can I just accept it? I don't have to be like, oh my God, I'm so happy about this. I can just be like, oh, I have some discomfort because it's not where I'm wanting to be. But this is where I am at. I could be still back in the where I was in my 20s. That was a whole thing. Y'all, that was a whole thing. Dawn knew me then. I was, whoa. I can buy my parents dinner.
So,
and then go ahead.
Go ahead. I'll go after what you're about to say because I don't want to interrupt you. Go ahead.
The other piece that I was just thinking about is, gratitude. One of my previous partners was really ragging on me about, he would get so upset with me for being grateful for the mundane. I mean, there would be little like things that I would celebrate that were just minute. Like, oh my God, I woke up feeling okay today. Or my coffee worked perfect. Like, I would just celebrate all the little mundane pieces. And he was like, why would you celebrate the mundane? That's nothing to celebrate. Like, I don't get it. Like, you celebrate this idea of extra work. And I was like, and now that I think about it, I'm like, I don't want to celebrate overworking. I want to celebrate the mundane. And that's one of my practices, is coming back to celebrating the mundane. Example, I was bedridden, not too long, 3 months ago. Totally laid up in bed. I couldn't move. I was crying every day because I couldn't literally bend my knee. And now I'm hiking. And every day that I felt a little bit better, I would celebrate, oh my God, my knee doesn't hurt to my hip today. I can get up out of bed and walk. It's those little pieces. Mm-hmm. It's part of my practice, and we can go into another practice. How about you, Dawn?
Well, I've been really working with this amazing book over the last month or so, and I've read it before, but I was invited by a good friend of mine to actually bring it back on the table and read it again. I read it when I was in graduate school, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to do that. I'm going to listen to it again. And since then, I've listened to it maybe 7 times complete in the car, just as I'm driving around and doing things. But it's this book, Feel Free to Prosper, by Marilyn Janae. And I'm not one to always tote things online, but I share books all the time with my clients and things. And so, but this book is incredible. And she mentions why affirmations won't work for people usually, because you can have this amazing affirmation, but if your subconscious doesn't believe it, then you believe you're lying to yourself when you say that affirmation. And so that's why affirmations don't work. And what it is you need to plant it in when you have something in your mind, you're planting the seed in the soil of your consciousness by repeating it often and saying it to yourself often. And what happens is it needs to take hold in the unconscious, in the divine feminine aspect of yourself, the unconscious. And when they agree, the conscious mind and the unconscious, that's when it gives birth into the world, into your life. And so it's very powerful to really allow yourself. She says that in the book, and if you download the audiobook and listen to it, I highly recommend it. It's great. But she says just to start with the very first 2, don't even say a whole affirmation, but just pick the words wealth and success. And just to say those things as a mantra, like when I'm driving around or we're waiting in the grocery store line, I just feel the vibration of that and give myself space to just say those 2 words and feel it. Feel it in my being and acknowledge it in my life. Everything is so successful. The fact that I have freaking running water and can get myself amazing clean water to drink, I celebrate that, right? I took a hot shower this morning and I was like, wow, Spirit, thank you for this delicious hot shower. That is success to me, right? Just the the things that give me like this delicious, restful, easeful, graceful way of embodying my life, like everything. The fact that I have a freaking amazing smartphone that I can use. And, you know, like that is success, right? Like I'm so privileged and blessed that Spirit is orchestrating every detail in my life, and that I'm conscious of it, and it's my conscious mind. And it's when we're really open to co-creating with Spirit that you can have, like she says it this way, that is spirit on, or the universe on speed dial. When you really just give it over to Spirit and like really bring that conscious relationship into your heart and into your mind in congruence, that it's literally, that's what the universe is asking for. And that you are expanding your container to receive more when you do this. And it gets you out of those rhythms of lack consciousness and not believing that you can be more prosperous than you are. And it bridges the gap of what you're wanting. And so I chose to make a little extra step in my just acknowledgments of what Spirit brings into my life, right? Like noticing all the little things, right? Because it's all the little things that add up to creating the big things, the big momentum of whatever you're choosing in your life. So I created I found this delicious little book that fit perfectly in my purse. And I was like, I'm going to just take the extra step. Like, for instance, I had to drive to the bank the other day because it's like the rent is due, and I was like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna go to the bank, and before I went in to do all my money transactions that I had to do for that day, I actually sat with my little book and I noticed all the little things, down to like the sweet cup of coffee and the little like delicious little croissant that was bought for me as a gift like the day before. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to fully acknowledge that this is Spirit blessing me in all these ways. And it was like so many. It was like a long list of just small things. And I loved it. And I felt so prosperous after I did that step. And then I went into the bank with that energy and was like able to give from that place in my heart of just like, thank you. And like acknowledging that this is the universe, Spirit, source, God, whatever you want to call it. We're all participating in it. Every second of every moment of our breath is consciousness, right? Regardless if we're conscious of it or not, it's happening. So it's like, can you bring more consciousness into that millisecond of your life and more gratitude for what is taking place, even if it's uncomfortable, right? Like, wow, Spirit, thank you. I can recognize I'm completing something here. And I can recognize simultaneously how blessed I am to have this moment to complete this.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So that's just sharing my own gratitude, prosperity practice that I have going on a daily, right? Like just to give example of transforming how we define success, right? Because it's like I just want to say one more thing. When you're believing that you're not able to achieve whatever, that big goal, that's just blocking you from having it. But when you really like break it down to like the baby steps of life, and you start to have that gratitude for all the little things, that's creating the container to expand, to allow in the bigger parts, the bigger dreams to be realized. And the upgrade we're all asking for, because everybody's asking for an upgrade, whatever that may be for you. We're all being stretched in that way, and so you can have it. Give yourself space to believe it. And allow yourself to seed that in your unconscious so that it can come to life.
That's yes. And on a psychological or a neuroscience way, hold on 1 second. In a neuroscience way, is that when so if you're constantly in cortisol and adrenaline, that your brain is literally wiring for fight, flight, flee, or fawn, right? And I mean, for someone who runs anxiety, I run a lot of anxiety a lot of the time. Like I'm like really strung because of the childhood that I grew up in and the life that I've lived. Not just because of that, but the life that I've lived is kind of crazy. Like I have put myself in some really dangerous, scary situations. And so now as an adult, that's kind of, I'm wired that way. But so if I'm constantly hyper focused, I don't know if any one of you watch this, or have this experience if you're hyper focused on things that you don't have or things that are negative. That's you're just literally continuing to create cycles of cortisol and adrenaline. Now, I'm not saying to bypass what's real in your life. Like, that is not what I'm saying at all. I'm not saying like, oh, just band-aid whatever's shit in your life with some gratitude. I am not into spiritual bypassing literally at all. I'll never be a supporter of that. And I'll never be a supporter of it's all good. I think that's very harmful. What I am a supporter of is being with, here's a true example for me. There's been a lot of, I've had a relationship with a friend for some time, and I love this person very, very deeply. And I'm recognizing that our attachment styles just don't work together. And I have feelings about it. Oh, don't get me wrong. Like, there's lots of stuff coming up, and I'm dancing, and I'm, crying, and I'm frustrated, and I'm writing over it, and I'm upset. And I'm sitting back and just being really grateful for the opportunity. I'm like, I'm upset. I'm like angry. I'm like speaking to my therapist about it. It's helping me understand myself more. It's helping me understand what I want more and the incremental steps that I want to take. So what I'm grateful for is that I get to see this pattern, this person, this experience through a loving person. This person loves me too. So I'm like, oh, I get to see it from the receiving lens of love. Like, oh, okay, I'm grateful that it's not coming from an abusive hand. I'm grateful that it's not coming from something violent or, and don't get me wrong. I know that a lot of people that maybe are watching or aren't watching, or maybe don't even have a computer, like, might not get that. And I'm not saying that, I'm not trying to band-aid gratitude, right? I'm not trying to use that. It's just that when you do start to see your own progress, when you get to stop and look back on your timeline, and you're like, oh, this is my timeline. That's kind of how it looks. I'm teasing. That when you get to stop and look back, when Dawn met me, I think that I was going through a really heightened emotional space because of a couple of experiences that were really traumatic for me. I didn't trigger warning show, so I don't want to say these words, but it was really, it shook me to my core. My family that I was living with moved away, and my partner broke up with me, and I was just destabilized, and I became homeless. I was in my 20s, like mid-20s. And when I look back on those places to where I am now, I could have just been like I could have just started right there, and then I wouldn't be happy until I would be here. But what I see now is that this path has created all these amazing points, including starting the show with Dawn Light. Like, that's a measure of success. Being a person that people trust to tell things, being like the way that I've developed myself. These are some measures of success for me. Being willing to hear another person's perspective. That is a measure of success for me. The way that I now see love, the way that I now see connection, the way that I now see my work is a measure of success. And one of those pieces, I only muted you. You're welcome to unmute whenever, is because there's feedback. And I recently have paused my work because of this course that I took. And even though it's wildly destabilizing and is causing literal friction in all of my relationships, every relationship, that I'm seeing it as progress, because I'm learning to be more loving through expansion of my perspective. And it's, well, I'm choosing, but I feel forced because of my movement and my values. I feel forced to realign my work to be more loving and expansive. It makes sense. So I'm not seeing as like, oh, this is where I want to be. Well, of course, this is, oh, wait, here, sorry. Right here's where I want to be. But there's a lot of points of success here that I can call on and be like, oh my God, you wouldn't believe it. I figured out how to create 4 whole days with my dad and his wife to be really smooth. I don't know how I did that, but that is success.
Beautiful.
I'd invite anybody in the chat or listening or, just to write in something like a new measure of success, like something that, maybe isn't, capitalistic or some sort of like what have you succeeded at, or what is your progress? I would love, and I'm sure, Dawn, I'm going to speak for you. We would love to celebrate your successes. Like maybe you didn't curse at the kids today because they, whatever, because kids are crazy. Or maybe you didn't, you broke that one thing that you do constantly. And you're like, oh, I didn't do that today. Maybe you seatbelted yourself in.
Matthew says, within every adversity is intrinsically equal or greater blessings. That is so true. Thank you, Matthew, for tuning in and watching. I can say I'm honestly really leaning into praising and acknowledging myself as growing my entrepreneurial self, right? And being a mom simultaneously, and honoring both places, like the balance of being a mother and being a wife and being an entrepreneur and serving, right? And serving lots of clients, and also being able to create content and write and expand the way I show up in the world, and with the show and all the parts. It's like I'm spinning lots of plates, and it's very full, and I'm celebrating that's where I'm at, because many years back, guess what? I was asking for this just a few years ago, before I went into graduate school, and I was really doing my undergrad and really pushing to get that done. I was aching to be in this place then. So now I get to be in this place of honoring this kind of ceiling of expansion that I'm bumping up against. Like, how do I expand past this place? With curiosity and excitement, nervousness, right? All the feelings. But really acknowledging, even last night, I picked up my kid, and he had an early day from school because he gets out early on Wednesdays. And, I have a 10-year-old, and it's very precious. This time is precious, and he's growing so fast. And I felt so honored to pick him up from school. And I had a client, and I had to race over there because it was just in the nick of time to pick him up in time. And I was so grateful to be able to be in that, doing that, and I was hurrying in the car to get there, and I was so grateful. I was celebrating myself. Wow, this is success. That just a few years ago I was aching, and I was away from my family all the time to be doing what I was doing to even just get here today. And now I get to be present and be that amazing mom that's I'm here, I'm picking you up, and guess what? I'm taking you to the dentist and paying for it, right? Through the blessed actions of what I'm doing in my life. And that's success. Just the simple things of caring for the beloved, right? The ones that we love in our life. And all he wanted a sushi date, and he wanted to watch a movie. And I was like, let's do it. I want to give you that, and it was joyful. And we got to have a mommy son moment together. And that is celebration. And in the middle, I got a call from a beloved friend and a client that's interested going forward. And that's this universe on speed dial right there. Like when you're in a surrendered state and allowing it to happen, the universe brings more and more of what you're asking for because you're in flow and you're not judging yourself, right? It's like the judgment we hold against what we perceive as success is out there, is keeping it from allowing it in.
Mm. I think that a measure of success for me that's shifted over the last year even. I mean, and it sounds silly to say it out loud because it's like an obvious one, is living in alignment with my values.
Which is everything.
This is how you live without abandoning yourself, and this is how you live without living in cognitive dissonance. This is how you live when you don't live in when you choose to live in integrity. Here's an example. You guys get a lot of examples from my personal life today because obviously I told you I was in a transitional place and I was, I've got a lot of things completing right now. So one of my values is to negotiate reality with other people, right? And my stepmom says to me, so I don't know if you've gathered this yet in your time with me, y'all, but I say the F word a lot. Like I just curse a lot. It's just part of my emphatic oomphness. And she goes to me, she says, baby, can you not say the F word so much? Because I'm trying not to get upset with you. And I was like, oh, okay. Yeah, I will actively do my best to not say the F word. Here's what I used to have. I would have been like, no, that's part of me. Like, and I was like, wait, but it makes her so uncomfortable, Like it does, like the word doesn't really. It's an exclamatory word. I could probably use anything else, Like there's a lot of things that people use. I specifically use this one. And I was like, oh, if this one word makes her feel uncomfortable, like why would I beat down on that and like hold to it? Like I'm like, I'm here for a few days. I can, without abandoning myself, again, if it was like, if they were gonna, pronouns, if they were gonna call me by the wrong pronouns, I'd probably be a little like about it. And stick to my ground, but that's a whole other conversation. So I was like, oh yeah, thank you for telling me your boundaries. I really appreciate you trusting me like that. I will do my best. Zero feeling in me. Like I was like, oh yeah, thank you for letting me love you there. Boundaries are the place where people they teach you how to love them. And I was like, great. I got to stop moving around. Sorry.
You're excited.
I know, it's like, so I walked into my room and I grabbed like my bag and everything because I had planned on going to my grandmother's house. And I walked out with the cat on my back and my purse. And she goes, oh my God, are you leaving? Because I asked you not to say the F word. And I was like, oh my God. And it occurred to me in that moment that either I had behaved like that in the past, that's what she had assumed would be that I would get upset because she set a boundary, or that other people in her life get upset when she asks for things. She's a very direct woman, and I love that. And she just was like very direct with me. It wasn't, like, and I was like, oh, great. It's fabulous. Thank you for just being clear. Like, and the clarity in it was just so delightful. And I looked at her and I was like, oh no, I actually just planned on going to grandma's house and I told her that I would be over there like half an hour ago. So I'm just gonna go, but I'll be back. Like, no, I totally not, I can work on not cursing as much in my lifetime or in my life with my friends, with children and other things. Like, this is actually a good thing. Thank you. And so that's the thing, is like a measure of success. I don't see anything as being failure, because there's a timeline ish that we're moving on. My body is aging. I'm going this way in some direction. Well, I'm going this way, but only Don really knows that. So there's this like time, this like consensually agreed upon time frame that we're all kind of living in. Oh. And so I know that there's some like it's moving forward like a river. We're flowing. And success, like it's just kind of doing that. You know, I've had a house, I've had a partner, I had a fiance once, and it crumbled. And I started not way back there. Well, actually, that would be way back there if I'm using the timeline that I've been using all day. I'm not starting way back there, but I'm actually still moving forward. Well, I mean, we can nitpick consensual timing, but you know what I mean, Eugene. It's like, yes, there's some aspect of living in the life that we have to live in. Like we have to reconcile living in reality with a bunch of other people. I reconcile living in this consensual or semi-consensual reality. We'll call that. And that's me choosing it rather than rebelling against it. And so as my success, like I could still be in the rebellious stage and causing a lot of pain. But now success is that I have honed my skills in being lovingly rebellious and moving, being the change through my interpersonal growth in myself. Right?
I also think it's really important to examine where we've perceived failure in our life, because it's really, the truth is there's only learning. There's only soul growth and soul learning. And there's a saying they say, you know, in business, and when you learn to be an entrepreneur, they say fail your way forward. That's a very common, I've heard it in many different genres and teachers and things. But I really don't even like to think of it as failure any longer, because I'm learning. What am I learning here, right? And I have to go back and examine the big perceived failures in my life. And I was like, whoa, those were big moments of spirit rearranging my life and like almost course correction, you know, like, oh no, I wasn't meant to go down that road. And that's why it crumbled before my eyes and dissolved. And actually I went on a new pathway and did all these new things. And that new stuff would have never came into my zone or my field of, you know, quantum field or, you know, anything. I wouldn't have even thought about those things if that hadn't have happened. So it's like when we hang on to these like deep, you know, painful judgments of what we perceive as failure in our life actually holds us back from really allowing ourselves to know ourselves as success, our own measure of success in life, and not compared to anyone else. I invite everyone to just really compare your own life to your own life. Like, where was I 10 years ago compared to now, right? And like, look at all the growth, all the learning, all the takeaways, all the gems, all the value, right? That you've experienced, the gold inside of yourself through everything you've been through. And like, that's powerful. That's profound. You see yourself evolving and growing when you look at your own life and examine your own life, because it's not about anyone else, you know, and when we compare to someone else, it's just creating separation from our own source, our own way of relating to our spiritual curriculum in our life, you know. And there's so much beauty and grace and connectedness and value in everyone's life experience, no matter what walk of life you are, no matter where you are on the socioeconomic status. Like, there's always so much value and something powerfully learned in everyone's day-to-day living. And, you know, you can lean in and experience yourself as success, regardless of where you are in your life. And give yourself the permission to investigate deeply where you hold judgments around where your past failures may be, is my invitation for today.
Yes. the places where I thought were failure actually were profound lessons. And I know that's coming from also a privileged place to say that these like failures are I can turn them in that way.
Well, it's cleansing the lens of perception around how we hold it inside.
Yeah, I mean, so if I was to take the disillusion or the dissolving of my previous relationship, that I aligned my life with this person and we were going to get married, and I like that's what I wanted. That's still what I want, is like a partnership, a creationship, a a teammate or teammates. And if I looked, I mean, for a long time, I looked at it as this deficit, like, oh gosh, I went backward. And actually, what happened is that particular discomfort and separation and that whole thing gave me the fire to look at my codependency. It gave me the fire to look at where I was abusive. It gave me the drive to be a better person and actually find ways to live in my truth. Like, it taught me that I needed to know my truth, because I was fawning. I was fawning constantly. I didn't believe that I was worthy of any sort of love, because that's what I was taught. So,
And wouldn't you say
that place? Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, wouldn't you say even deeper than that? Yes, it showed you all those things, but wouldn't you say it was even completion of those patterns from your parental triangle dynamic that you experienced as a young one, and an opportunity to go back through and examine those places?
I don't think it was a completion. I think it was a lecture. I became aware of the pattern. And I was like, oh, because I was so in it, I wasn't even aware of the pattern.
Got it.
That was the first lecture to a deep chemistry course or something. I was like, oh, okay. I still didn't quite get it. Then I went through another relationship, a very brief one, that was really profound and an aha. And I was like, oh my God, this is a pattern. And then that's when I got to track it back. And then this most recent one was a dialing, like, oh, this is even deeper. Look, like, when you're on your phone or whatever, and you can go and look at like all the details. Now I'm in a place of completion because I'm consciously making choices. So I can consciously be like, I can see that happening in advance. I actually don't want to participate in this pattern again. Before, I was consciously doing it. So I think that is success. It has been messy success, but this is progress, and progress for me is success.
That's beautiful. Well said.
Totally.
And I celebrate you there.
And the place of like looking at the process as being part of the successful progress is like, it's like, I don't need to put a time frame on my transformations, or I don't need to changing my mind, or my choosing a different perspective. I don't need to put a time frame on that, because I don't know about you, but the universe or God or whatever, however my patterning moves me in the direction of the flow of whatever time, it has its own things going on. And I've got my own blind spots. Until I see them, they will be blind, right? So there are many things that I can't control in the world. So I can't necessarily say, I will have $50,000 by next week. Is that realistic? No. I mean, who knows? Just putting it out there. But I'm not planning for that, and I'm not setting myself up for that kind of disappointment. And so that is also a measure of success in my life, is that I'm actually realistically looking at my own patterning and the patterning of the world, and how the world works, so that I can now find a like set myself up and everyone else up for success. And what I mean is like a triple win. And I was also thinking about power, because Eugene put in this idea of power dynamics. And again, Eugene, we'll have a whole show based on the things that you really want to talk about, because I know that you're here. For
Hi,
me, power, taking back one's power, including success, including progress, is to live in your body. That means being with the pain. That means with the pleasure. That means being in your body, because we're taught to disembody and live here. So to be in it, like my knee hurts today. I don't know what I know what I did, but there's some stuff like it. I'm in the pain. I'm like, okay, here it is. I'm here with it. There's some stuff in my neck. I'm in my body, and I'm present. That's when you know you're present. I'm choosing authenticity, like fully authentic. I'm not brutal. I'm radically authentic, and I'm lovingly authentic. I'm not going to say the F word in front of my stepmom, but I am going to say what I want to say to her with emphasis. Fudging. I'm just kidding. And the other piece of owning your power, I think, and reclaiming it, is also part of really knowing what your yes and your no feel like in your body.
Mm-hmm.
And we live in a codependent society that's taught to us. So, these are long rants. You guys just get like full on authentic today. Good for you. I do through a couple. So if you got a pen and a paper, close, I urge you lovingly to get those right now. And you can always go back and rewatch the show and get these questions. And just write down, what are my current measures of success in my life? And honestly, you can just write down your current measures, like real on. What are your current measures of success? And what I mean by a measure of success is like, what do you define success as? Is it money, cars, women, bikinis, houses,
Education,
education,
getting married, white picket fence,
children?
2.5 children.
Would you want the lower half or the upper half? I'm not sure.
0.5 is like usually an animal, like a dog or a cat.
And write down or type in what your measures of success are. Maybe I'm going to give you a couple more seconds on that. And right next to them, I want you to answer, do they align with your values? And what I mean by do they align is like how you're getting to that measure of success. Like, if you're not a materialistic person, but you're driving for that 3-story home, is that in alignment with your values? We might have some dissonance here. We might have some things that aren't working. And are your strategies to get are those aligned in your values as well? Okay. So I invite you right now to continue to go down a little bit and write some of these things out. And write them in 5s. 5 values that align with who you believe yourself to be. Again, you can watch this again. You can play along with us right now. 5. And then underneath that, your 5 closest connections in your life. And then underneath that, 5 short-term goals, and 5 long-term goals. And I'm going to give you just a second about, thanks, Don. Just going to give you a moment to think about those things. So you've probably heard Don and I speak a lot about how people behave. You've probably heard me speak a lot. If you know me at all, you've heard me talk to you about how the way that humans work is that we are moving to get our needs met. So we are constantly moving towards what we value, what we need, what we want, and what we value. This is why people do what they do. If you ever wanted to know the secret, why do people do what they do? Their values and to get their needs met. This is it, straight up. And I invite you to look at these lists as you're writing them down. The people in your life, do they share your same values? Are they in values alignment enough to be as close as they are to you? Are there people in your life that are really values aligned that you want to develop more time with? Are your short-term goals in alignment with your values? Values alignment is how you take back your power and how you live in your authenticity. It's how you live in integrity, is that you're choosing the yes and the no. And that you're making sure that everyone around you is safe and you're safe. So put your pencil down, take a nice deep breath in, and shake your shoulders out. Or wiggle any body part that you can wiggle, maybe blink your eyes, just to know that you are in your body. Maybe you're just focusing on the expansion of your lungs. And think about the last success or moment of progress that you had or that you noticed. Something that you're really, really happy about or you're proud of. Something that you hope would reoccur. Good. Now start thinking through what you did right. Can you pick up specific points of what you did correct this time? Or not correct, but the things that you did that were in alignment. Like the things that were like, yes, this is where I'm at. And now think about the things that in the past hindered your progress. What did you learn between the subtle tweaks or the dialing that you needed to get into that something that you felt like you were successful? Like how did it move from this things you were doing wrong to the things that you were doing right, correctly? In your eyes, of course. And think of where you are today with it. Now that you're sitting back and looking back, like pondering about being self-aware about this process that you were in. Now, bringing it back to the front of your mind, this last success, and rethinking the progress or the process is a path of success. That just subtle moment. We talked a lot about it today. You heard a lot of stories from me about this. Right? So now take something that you're working towards, like something that you'd like. Make it not a material thing. Make it something like maybe something personal that you're working on. Maybe it's, quitting smoking weed or maybe you want to implement a new hobby or a new habit. Maybe it's that you want a better relationship with someone. And I know that you have a time frame in your brain. You're human. And I want you to expand that time frame by 5. And really give yourself like a good, like, you can do this. Be really compassionate with yourself. You can do this. You're doing great. We're doing great. We're right where we need to be. We're moving forward. Pep talk. As you expand your time frame to complete or to get to where you want to be by 5. And imagine yourself actually getting to the place that you want to be. Like see yourself from the moment, from right before it happens, all the way through the moment that you wanted to happen. And see yourself fully completing that piece in it. What does it feel like in your body? Take a deep breath in your imagination, in your vision, and take a deep breath right now. And in the vision, take a look around. And actively name out the things that you can see, feel, hear. Who's there? What's happening? What's happening inside your body? Give yourself deep gratitude for being here in the moment in your vision. And then when you open your eyes, giving yourself gratitude for showing up today. At 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, or somewhere close to that, on a Thursday morning in the middle of the day, to talk about progress and success. And I invite you that if any part of that was challenging to see yourself getting what you want, if any part of that was challenging, I invite you to reach out to someone who has it already. Because there might be ways, or at least one person, maybe 3, maybe 5 people who have what you want, because the strategy that you may understand how to get there might not be the strategy that's working. Does it make sense? So as we come back on, I invite you to just drop into your body, shake it out again. Take a deep breath. And just know that you're here with both of us. And know that you're here in your body. One of my favorite things to say to my clients is again, I lived in a crazy dangerous childhood and a crazy dangerous life up until now. I'm sort of leveling out. That's something I say to myself when my body gets anxious or when I get overwhelmed or when I'm like frustrated because I'm not where I want to be. I stop. I'll be at the grocery store. I'll be in a parking. Who knows where I am? When I'm all like, and I notice that I go, okay. I'm here with me now. And then I talk to myself about where I am. Things that I'm sensing. I'll even call it, I'm feeling blank, whatever it is. I'm feeling this way. It lives here somewhere. I can feel the heat on my face. And I can feel my fingers touching. And I can sense that there's a heater running. And I just get really present with what is happening right now. And when I get present, I say, oh, good job, you. So is this helping? Are you guys getting some level of redefining what success is for you. Like everyone has their own definition. It's not about my definitions of success or Dawn's, but it's what we individually value is where we get to align to. Sorry if that was heavy. Not really sorry. Kind of. I'm kind of sorry if it's heavy. Shake it out, y'all.
No need to apologize for that.
I know. It's just, sometimes I feel like when you and I teach, we have a tendency to just go really deep. And I feel like that should be a warning in advance. Like, hey, y'all, when we start going into the process, we're going to take you down. Yeah, I should just say that in advance. Like, hey, it's going to be deep. Fair warning. Consensual. It's a consensual piece for me. That's the thing. Is like I love consensuality. Is that yeah. So
beautiful.
Thank you all for showing up today, and thank you, Dawn, for showing up today.
Thank you,
and for dancing with me in this wild thing we call the self-love show.
Right. I know. Way to pivot. Thanks for co-teaching today. I really appreciate it. It was great. We just pivoted in such a beautiful way.
It is, and it was, again, it was really, I just randomly picked something. I was like, shoot, I'll just like randomly pick. It was such a perfect because I think that we get into this place. Like I still get hooked into the capitalist trap all the time. Totally get hooked. And I get hooked onto other people's opinions of what I should and could be doing. And the best way for me to know that I'm doing that is that I feel obligation. Does everybody know what obligation feels like? That's when I know that I'm not living in my values or in my integrity. And that I need to slow down in that moment. And I think that, as we're cresting into the fall and Christmas is coming, I know that it starts to, like the change of the season gets a little funny in people's heads and in the body. And then that whole, like the way that we gift in the world also starts building this pressure and anxiety about doing it right. And it's just like a perfect time for this, and for me in this completion of my integration of this coursework that I've been integrating, like that course ended like 2 months ago, and I've still just been like grinding it out. I've been sanding out a lot of things, the slivers of my life. Yeah.
I just feel like we're always redefining our measure of success in our own life. It's a conversation we're always having, that it's like, where can I reevaluate how I'm showing up and what I want, and moving to the next level and giving ourselves the space to have that. It's always a beautiful conversation that's going on inwardly, and that you don't need to like compare yourself to anyone or anything, that you've got your own beautiful timeline that you're living and embodying, and allowing yourself to just lean into that beautiful conversation with spirit, because spirit knows your timeline like nobody else. It's all spirit's timeline. So just really surrendering that up, like, okay, this beautiful gift of this life is yours. How would you want me to live it? I'm showing up to serve. I'm so ready. Like, what would you have me do, say, be, embody, right? Like giving it over, I think really allows you to stretch into the places you've asked for, because here's the truth of the matter. If you can dream it, it is yours. It's given to you for a reason. It's in alignment with your gifts, and when you really start to lean into like, wow, what are my gifts precisely given to me for my purpose? Then you start to explore what that is and extract it from your being and really put it into play. And like, the more you create space in your life and create space inside of yourself to live and embody that, then the more you're living into your soul's timeline. of what you're here to do. And it creates that shift in places where you felt it sticky or hard, right? I was fighting and longing for my soul's purpose to come about for so many years, and kind of trapped in a job that had golden shackles, golden handcuffs. And it was like I made great money, but I was deeply unsatisfied. And I was craving and desiring, and all the while working, baby stepping my way daily, even though it never showed up on the outside yet. Inside I was making those headway, and that strong desire and yearning to like step fully in to what I'm doing now. And it was a long progress, like long stretching thing where it like even took me to a place where I would like sometimes doubt it, because it was so freaking long and arduous, the process to get there. And it's okay now that I see it, because it's hindsight is 2020. I'm like, dang, man, I was really completing some very difficult childhood curriculum through that process. And now I get to embody that and really share deeply what that was and how it all happened. And I'm like literally helping women on that same journey of like where their trauma has helped them it kept them stuck. And it's like, wow, all the things I've been through in my life now are a part of my journey of how I help others. And it's like, it feels so fulfilled now because I'm serving in this place where it's like connecting the dots for others, even though their curriculum is a little different and their experiences have been very different than mine. But it's like I can connect the dots where the mother wound was, or connect the dots where the father wound was, and really help them see like all the places abandonment takes place, all the places that codependency takes place, and then where they've given their power away and where it keeps perpetuating that same pattern. And like they can really reclaim those lost pieces and dissolve it and lay it down so that the life they desire truly can show up on the outside. And it's always reevaluating that measure of success. Just bring it right back to that, right? Through the inner work that we're working with, our spiritual curriculum is that gift, right? And like giving it over, giving yourself fully over to spirit, and like, how can I best show up today with my soul's gifts, with my purpose, I'm a spark of creation and a spark of creator inside me, beating my heart, giving me this breath today. How can I be of best service in an alignment with what you've asked me to come here to do in this life? Yeah. So that's my gift for the end of the talk for today. God bless you.
Oh. Sometimes I really do miss teaching with just you. So just saying it out loud in front of you.
Thank you.
And I also just want finding little bits of gratitude for what you do is so important.
It's the lifeblood to everything, like weaving that gratitude through all the parts.
If you want to support us, help share us out on YouTube. We are all in this together. That's the truth. What I do impacts you, and what I do impacts someone, on the other side of the world. So just thinking about each other. If you really want to support us, like us on YouTube, find us there, share it out to your friends who aren't on Facebook or other things like
please.
Please. I will link that again. Oh, hold on. For all of you men who love what we share and want to work with one of us, which would be me, because I work with men, that you can reach out to me specifically and we can come up with a way to work together. But if you're a woman and you want to be in a community of women who are really stepping into their trust in themselves and the world, then I'm going to invite Dawn to speak about more.
This is a powerful container and an opportunity for you to step fully into saying yes to where you have distrusted yourself in the past and rewrite those places, rewrite those stories, reclaim your power in a place where you did distrust, right? And it's like, it's based on my own life curriculum because I've had trust, in the past. With my dad, I had deep distrust issues that were carved and created in my childhood. So I really desire to share how to reclaim that for yourself so that you can have better relationships. You can have that marriage you've always desired to be fully present in and authentic and like deeply in love, right? And rekindle that flame in that relationship that maybe perceived as out of balance or where there's crunchy, it's not working out in your perception. And you can really make major role reversal in these types of relationships and not leave and not get a divorce and work that out, right? Work that curriculum out and find that place of balance, find that place of deeper love and authenticity. It is not lost and it is not hopeless, and it's a place of like reclaiming deeper self-compassion and deep self-love so that you can grow and expand in these places where it seemed like a perpetuated pattern, which you have the power to make that change in your life. And so this is a place where we discuss all these things and show up authentically and live in our truth. And if you're a woman that's desiring to reclaim this in your life, and especially in your relationship, this is a place to join. So come on in. We would love to have you.
And again, we're not exclusive. I mean, it is exclusive for women. But if you want to work with men, reach out to me. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram. You can find me all over the place. And again, thank you guys for showing up today for yourself and for your loved ones and for us. And we'll see you next week.
Yes, we appreciate you so much. And please, again, like, share, and subscribe the YouTube channel. And if you know somebody that is just really, wanting growth in their life, we have a lot of amazing shows over the last year, and it's very helpful, right, to have this valuable free information. So please tell people about the show and that they can go to the YouTube channel and like, share, and subscribe. Like, this is the best way to support this endeavor to keep going, is like, we need your support, and if you have a burning like, hey, I want to show on this topic, like, reach out to us, send us a private message. We love this information. We're doing this for your awakening, and it's in support of your authentic growth and evolution as a soul on the planet. We want that for you. So yes, we say yes.
This is the truth.
Mm-hmm. May you have an amazing week.
All right, bye.
Bye.